We will absolutely all be good here. So I have to be able to move here to be able to read the title of the talk too. Good deal. Well,
Are we on? We're on.
Fantastic. We are good. So we're starting.
I
here.
assume you edit these things, right? You don't just like stream it live?
I can edit it.
We do. We do
chop
chop the ends off. Like a good sausage. There's no. Well, I'm delighted to welcome our guests and our speaker to the last of the Language Matters for look at this, I'm going out to 1900, here I go. I'm delighted to welcome everyone to the last Language Matters for 2013, and it's a particularly interesting one for our theme this year that we've been running on trying to integrate technology with language instruction in ways that would affect the most students. So specifically, today's talk is focusing in on introductory level language acquisition that integrates culture into it. It's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker. Dr. Cüneyt Okur coordinates the Turkish Studies program here at the University of Texas in the Department of Middle Eastern Studies. She teaches a variety of courses in language, literature, film, and cultural studies. She previously lectured at the University of Houston and at Rice University's Glasgow School of Continuing Studies. This was from 2009 to 10. And in the Department of Turkish Language and Literature and Department of Foreign Languages at TOOBB, University of Economy and Technology in Ankara, Turkey, 2005 to 8. Also competent in German, Dr. Okur completed her doctoral degree in German languages and literature at Ankara University in 2007 in a department known for its engagement in the fields of comparative literature and comparative linguistics. As an educator who's lived and worked and taught in various foreign languages as well as literature and history in primary, secondary, post-secondary students in Austria, Turkey, and in the US over the past 21 years, Dr. Okur continues to be interested in the pedagogical issues that we're so interested in, teaching culture in the foreign language classroom, as well as teaching critical reading and writing skills in literature, in culture-focused interdisciplinary approaches. She's particularly interested in contemporary transnational literature, exile literature, and Sufi literature. In her free time, she enjoys hiking, cooking, traveling, and playing with her 2 daughters, which is terrific. Today, however, she's focusing in on developing novice-level students' communicative and cultural proficiency. It's my distinct pleasure to welcome Professor Dr. Cüneyt Okur. Welcome.
Thank you for your very nice introduction. And today I'm going to be telling you about a project that's really just begun. It's a project that my former assistant, Duygu Ustaok, and I were working on together this summer, and yes, I'll just get started. Aha, so I can see a little bit is cut off. So we've been working on building a set of online autocorrect exercises for our intensive Turkish program. And this is part of a larger project, a web platform called OSL, or Online Components for Intensive Language Learning, about which many of you might know. There are about 5 or 6 languages working with this new platform right now. And for those of you who don't know, the point of this web platform is to help UT increase its teaching capacity, language teaching and learning capacity through more effective use of time and effort by teachers and students. And the focus is on what students do outside of the classroom. Why are we pursuing this? We're of the opinion, not just Duygu and I, but the rest of the people working on developing these kinds of autocorrect exercises. We're of the opinion that these sorts of exercises and drills allow students to work at their own pace and with immediate feedback. I'll come up here so I have to read a little bit. That they, working at home in an online environment also provides opportunities for language learning that complement, for practice that complement in-class instruction. It also contributes to our overall student-centered methodological and philosophical approach. The idea being that the student should be able to learn and practice controlling his or her own pace and what exactly he or she wants to review, and be able to do some things without the direct interference of the instructor. This in turn learn to take responsibility for their own language learning from the very beginning. And also, very important, it has an advantage for the instructors. Using autocorrect online exercises and drills decreases the amount of time for us to correct the students' daily homework assignments by at least 50%. It makes a big difference. And this allows us to make better use of the curriculum, to spend more time developing interesting lesson plans, and to focus on the activation of materials rather than drills during class time. So that's the overall goal. When it came to developing materials for this web platform for intensive Turkish, we had some very specific goals. We felt that our new curricular materials for intensive Turkish were a little bit weak in the area of listening, and that they were too devoid of cultural content. So we wanted to put a special focus on listening as sort of the key, the backbone to every other skill, and on increasing students' cultural proficiency at the same time. Before I talk a little bit about our methodology, I just want to mention who were all the players in this project, because it looks like it's just me, but it actually wasn't. There were a lot of people involved in this. Perhaps the two developers of curricular materials were myself and Dr. Usla, who couldn't be here today. But she's a graduate of the College of Education's doctoral program in foreign language education. Our late staff, Mike Heidenreich, Jacob Weiss, and Stacy Glasses were also indispensable. They helped us both in the studio with recording and in the actual physical manual building of the web platform and its maintenance. We also thank the Texas Language Center, who gave us a grant in the summer and made it possible for me to work on this, so I had money to send my children to summer camp. Much more important grant, perhaps, is the huge LIFT grant that supported the building of the Oslo website. And finally, we had about 30 different Turkish Americans in the studio this summer doing voice recordings for us, and they did this of their own time and their own will for no pay, so I'd like to say thank them as well. Okay, so our four major goals, our line of thinking in developing our online exercises were such. First, we wanted to stimulate students' interest in the target culture, in particular by using a lot of culture-specific photos and videos, and very cultural-specific scenarios. Still the same basic beginner, novice level kinds of inter-exchanges, but rooted in modern-day Turkish culture. And finally, we wanted to use the element of humor a lot to keep the students motivated. Like I said, we have a large emphasis on listening. At least 80% of the exercises that we developed are listening-oriented. Again, because we felt like that was what the students needed more help with at home. And the kinds of skills that are worked on include phonetic, semantic, and syntactic recognition, and simply a lot of models for how the language is used. Another important point was recycling old vocabulary and structures in new contexts, and there are 10 units built into this website, which you'll see, and every single unit there is a recycling, certain activities that recycle material from the past 2 units. And finally, we wanted to help students, I guess, have a more concrete path from successful reception to successful production. And I think that some of the exercises I will show demonstrate how that works. There are a lot of little steps that sometimes get lost in language practice, and which is why certain chunks of language don't stick in students' minds. And so we wanted to provide concrete steps for getting things to sink in and become rehearsed practice. And we also created a number of activities to help students make the move from successful reception to successful production. And I'll talk a bit about those, in particular linked free writing assignments and in-class applications. Okay, so I will go through each of these. First of all, stimulating interest in the target culture. This is key. You need to do it from the beginning. And one of the ways I like to do it is to awaken the 5 senses, because that's what happens when you're in the target culture. So just to give a small example, this is something it's not on the website, but if you were learning Turkish, day 1, would you be more interested by this kind of an alphabet, you know, where you listen to me repeat, or you listen to a recording and listen and repeat it, something like A, armut, B, bebek, C, ceket, Ç, çay. Rather boring, right? Or, let's see if we can do this. Would you be more engaged? Let's see.
Very, very top slideshow, way at the top, all the way there it is. Right from the start.
Okay,
The current slide, yeah.
okay, almost, yes. Or would you be more engaged if you were learning the alphabet with culturally relevant material, like A, Atatürk, A, At, A, I, A, Ankara, A, Antalya, B, baklava, B, baharat, B, Boğaziçi, C, cami, C, ceviz, Cezeriye, Ç, çay, çaydanlık. Okay, so you can get the picture. You know, obviously you'll be more excited to learn this language, more excited to actually go to this country if you have a lot of visual input, and you would still learn the letters, and perhaps they would anchor better. Okay, so this is the idea behind loading culturally relevant material into all of our exercises. Okay, and let's get rid of that. And let's see, I want to go to our, I actually want to go directly to the exercise. Also, the website that we had up before. You can cut the camera if you like.
Try clicking on the yellow button up there and reduce that. It might, I think it's just resident behind it, no? There it is.
Okay. So I'd like to demonstrate how this works with just one little fill-in-the-blank exercise. And I have some handouts.
Thank you.
Okay, so this comes in the 3rd unit, maybe about the 5th week of class or so. And the students have been learning, of course, you know, food items and measurement, and very basic utterance like, I want this, and 2 of that, please. Okay? And I'd like to just run through this little exercise. What the students are doing here, this is homework. Listen to the following conversation between Zeynep and a street vendor in Cihangir, in Istanbul. First, they just take some general notes on what they understand. Then listen a second time, and type in the missing words or phrases you hear in the written conversation below. And if you scroll down, you see that there's a, you know, simple conversation between Zeynep and the satıcı, or the vendor, with some words missing. Okay, this is a fill-in-the-blank exercise. And then finally, after they've done that, they're going to write a paragraph, a minimum of 6 sentences, describing everything that they see in the photograph, and turn that in class. Okay, so you've got two exercises going on here. You have a listening exercise where you're listening for semantic units. Also, you're listening phonetically because they have to reproduce the word according to the sound that they hear. They've got to understand the communicative flow of the dialogue. And then finally, they're supposed to do some interpreting and recycling of vocabulary by writing a free paragraph about.
So they don't ever, what we have in our hands, they won't see. They don't see the English equivalent of what's on.
Right, so what I've given you is the
Right.
English equivalent of
Right.
the words that are being sought. And I will talk about the cultural
So
content.
they're basically operating entirely in Turkish.
They're operating entirely in Turkish, yeah.
Okay,
And
perfect.
where is our listening? Oh my goodness, where is it going? I was going to play it for you. Okay, so normally they're listening to this and they are typing in the words that they
That's
hear.
it.
And I'm sorry, for some reason the link is not there.
Okay. Where would that be normally on it?
Normally it would be right here underneath the dot. And for some reason it's not there, so I'm very sorry. We just have to pretend that we're listening to it. Okay. So basically what you would hear, if we could play it here, is a very realistic street scene. Okay, where the satıcı would be screaming at the top of his lungs, saying, "Strawberries! Fresh strawberries!" And she would stop him, and say, "How much is a kilo, brother?" Maybe one of you could read the English version with me. Tom, you're the satıcı.
I'm such a 5 lira, sister. They're really fresh.
5 lira? That's expensive.
These strawberries are from Mersin. They're organic.
Can't you make it 4 lira, brother?
How many kilos do you want?
3 kilos. I'm making my mother a strawberry cake.
I'll sell them for 4.5.
Okay, then 3 kilos, please.
Here you are.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
You too, miss. Strawberries! Fresh strawberries!
Okay, so it comes off a little bit stilted in English, but it's actually very natural and something that could happen on any occasion, on any street in Istanbul or a smaller city in Turkey. The point here is what's a little different here is, what kinds of cultural content do students immediately pick up? They learn, for example, that people address each other with family-type names, even though they're strangers. How are you, brother? I'm fine, sister. Okay, and the students will have learned these names, but they haven't learned them outside of the context of family. They would learn that you can bargain for the strawberries. They would learn that people actually still walk around with carts pulled by horses selling a single item. And if they're paying attention, they might also learn that there's a difference between organic produce and non-organic produce and where it comes from in Turkey. Okay? So that's all just loaded into one little dialogue.
And the measurement system they're using.
Yes, the measurement system. They would also learn, you can't hear it here, but you would also learn the unusual way in which the street vendors call out their merchandise. Okay, let's pull this back down. Getting the hang of it. Okay,
And then
now
it's
we'll
down
go
below.
back to here. Back to here. Okay, so that's just one little exercise. Imagine we have about 200 or so exercises, of which, on this. That's just one little type. I'm sorry. Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about the different types of listening exercises that we have on the site, and why we have them on the site. Some of them could be considered rote drills. We have exercises that are simply listen and repeat. For example, listen and repeat the verb conjugation in this tense. Okay, or listen and repeat what happens when you add possessive case endings to this word. Okay, there we're looking for the students to accurately reproduce sounds or phonemes and to accurately reproduce intonation. We also think that this helps with audio memorization. Those students who have a stronger audio learning style benefit from it. Another variation on this is the sentence dictation exercise, which is also listen and repeat. And this is a classic exercise, but I just want to show how it works here. Bear with me. Let's see. Down. And it's not showing.
It's up on the top of that menu bar. There you go.
Aha. Okay, so this is very simple, and the students do this at a certain point, usually in the middle of each unit. First, oh, I can't believe we have no sound. Okay, so they would hear the word egzersiz yapmak, to exercise, and they would repeat it. And then they click here and they hear a sentence with that verb used in it. A simple sentence that contains no other new vocabulary.
I thought I would get our sound.
That's our sound.
Let's try it.
Okay, let's do another one.
Blaring.
Okay, so we have now to swim. And we have no sound. That's okay. Just
Is the
imagine
sound
you're-
on? Let's do one last check.
One more.
Real quick. Let's try this real quick.
Uh-huh.
Try one more
All
time.
right, we'll try it right
So-
away.
Bisiklete binmek.
Okay, bisiklete binmek. So they would listen and repeat. That's easy enough.
Selin'in yeğeni her akşam bisiklete biniyor.
Selin'in yeğeni her akşam bisiklete biniyor. This is much harder for the student, right? The student has to listen to this as many times as possible until he or she can write that sentence out. Okay, there's no written cue. We usually do this towards the middle to the end of each unit. But you should note that in each sentence, there's no other new word other than that particular vocabulary. Okay, and no new grammar. The point is that they learn to listen for the word in context and to present, to be able to reproduce in writing a full communicative utterance with the word in it. This is very challenging for them. Okay, so that's another basic kind of, you could call it a listen and repeat or a dictation type exercise. And now we want to go back. Yes, so there we were looking at semantic and syntactical recognition. They have to be able to reproduce not only the word order, but the case endings that show whether something is the subject or the object. Written reproduction of phonemes, semantic unions, and full communicative utterances. Okay. The most frequent type of exercise is selective listening, where we have a dialogue or one person describing a room, usually no more than a 20 exchange between 20 times exchange between two speakers, or 2 paragraphs in length, where students are reading something and selectively listening for particular words, okay, which are usually the vocabulary that they're working on or vocabulary from older readings. The skills focused on here are, again, these. Then another large portion of the exercises are exercises where they're listening for important, significant details, critical details, or for overall gist. And there, the skills that we're focusing on is their ability to organize semantic material and to recognize communicative function. And sometimes we're also looking for simple text interpretation. What did the speaker mean by this? What did he want when he said that? And Here, we usually use short answer questions. Sometimes these are also fill in the blank that they can also get autocorrect answers to, immediate feedback to. Sometimes it's short answers that they have to write out and we grade them, in regular writing form. Sometimes they also fill out charts and we correct those normally. And let me just show you one example of that. It's so challenging. Let's see. Escape. Back to our website. Back down. Thanks for your patience. Six. Okay, so this is about mid-semester now. They've been learning verbs of ability. I can do this, I can't do that. And here, they're going to be listening to a typical Turkish sort of talent show. These are very popular in Turkey, where people are competing with their talents and they'll win big money and fame for it. And in this show, there's your host, and you've got the host, and you've got 3 competitors. And she interviews each of them before they begin their performances. And here, there's not much for them to read. They're listening for gist, and they're looking for what those 3 competitors can do and cannot do. Okay, so they will simply be filling out a chart that looks like this. And we'll just listen to the beginning of it so you can get a sense of what kinds of sounds are in this show.
İyi akşamlar sayın seyirciler. Bu akşamki Türkiye'nin Yıldızları adlı programımıza hoş geldiniz. Bu gece burada 3 yeni, genç, dinamik ve çok yetenekli yarışmacımız var. İlk yarışmacımız Hande. Hande, hoş geldin. Nasılsın?
Okay, so she's just brought into the first, competitor onto the stage and is going to do a little interview before her. So this is a rather long recording. It's one of the longest ones on the whole site. It's about 5 minutes in total. Most of our recordings are more like 5 seconds or 30 seconds to 2 minutes. But this one is well structured because for each competitor there's a musical interlude, and so it helps the listener organize what they're hearing.
So what would they get back? So I understand that they go and they try to, say for Hande, for Murat, and all, they mark what attributes. But when they submit a tempt, what feedback will they
I
get?
wanted to show this one because there are some limits, there are some definite limits to this web platform. We were working with only 2 types of templates. One is called the grid chart template, which you can basically do listen and repeat or dictation type exercises with. The other is the fill in the blank template, and we stretch that to do all kinds of things, to do matching with it, to do, what else do we do? Well, fill in the blank of various lengths, okay? But we didn't have some of the other templates that we wanted to have, and one of them that we really wanted was the matching template or the chart template.
Right.
And so this, unfortunately, all they're doing is it just gave us basically a platform for the students to listen to a good quality recording online, but then they have to turn the chart into us, and we're reading what they write in the chart. So that's it. It's not the best application of what the site can do. That's a good question. But I guess the point that I wanted to say was that we do have, sort of larger type listening exercises where students are listening here for gist or for particular detail. Okay, so that's that. Yes, we have one more. Okay, now I want to go back and make this big again.
Click, oh, you get the click
Where'd it
on.
go? There it is. It keeps changing its place. Current slide. Okay. I mentioned that we spend a lot of time on the website also recycling vocabulary and structures, and I wanted to give an example of viewing exercise. Example of this. Like I said, at the end of every unit, we review vocabulary from the last 2 units, or sometimes 3 units. We not only used material that we recorded ourselves, but we also made use of YouTube videos. We were able to embed them on the site. For example, in Unit 4, to review vocabulary from Units 3 and 4, the students are asked to watch this particular video and to complete a fill-in-the-blank vocabulary review exercise that requires them to verbalize what they see. So basically, there's a long paragraph that summarizes what happens, the action, the plot line of the ad, but it's very detailed. It involves color, it involves, adjectives, like, wet, white, dirty, nouns that they've learned, like dogs, socks, towels, bed. Come in. And they have to put this together into sort of a full verbalized narrative of what the commercial is about. And then there are some interpretive questions that they answer, and these also have fill-in-the-blank answers with automated, correct, immediate feedback. So, yes, we will take a quick look at this. However, for time, we need to speed up. Let's see. We'll get there. Almost there.
Actually, you're scrolling through all of this is very interesting because it just shows the incredible amount of stuff you have here that divided up by, like you said, the case, tense,
Yeah.
level of vocabulary. It's really very impressive.
Okay, I believe it's this one. Did you see this one? No, it's not that one. Okay. Let's try it one more time. If not, we'll skip it, but I'm going to try and show it to you. Oh, okay, here it is. Should be this one. Okay. Yes. Okay. So you bear with me. It's just a very quick. You want to see the video?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. Sound may not be so loud, but. Okay, so they click right on the.
Sevmek ve sorumluluk almak aslında hayatta tanışmaktır. O, kirlenmek güzeldir.
Okay, so the message of the is, getting dirty is nice, right? And basically, they would probably have to watch this video at least 5 times to be able to complete all the fill in the blanks because it's very detailed. They need to be able to say, who's in the film, that the boy wakes up, that he's wearing white pajamas and he's in a white bed with white sheets on it, that he looks out of the window, he sees it's raining, he hears a bark, he hears a dog, he goes down the stairs. There's lots of directional case endings and directional words in here. That he picks up the dog, and that he takes him up the stairs, he takes him into the bathroom, he dries him off with the white towel, the towel gets dirty, and then there's questions afterwards about, and what kind of laundry does his mother have to do the next day, things like that. Okay. Yeah, so we have a number of videos, that are used basically to sort of recycle vocabulary. And the type of exercise, again, there was the fill in the blank exercise. All right.
Might be able to go back.
No, we don't want that. Getting towards the end.
You just click on for current slides.
Okay. All right, so doing all this extra practice at home, and in particular with lots of listening input, what kind of results have we seen? We've only been piloting this in a group of 12 students this semester, but I have to say, the difference between this group's pronunciation skills, intonation skills, the rapidity, the speed with which they memorize vocabulary, it's an amazing difference to the students we taught before with the exact same communicative-oriented book, but nothing at home other than traditional written exercises and a few listening exercises. It's also opened up because they come into class having had so much more practice. It's opened up for the way for us to do a lot more activation of materials. Let's see. I should mention that, because we do a lot of this sort of exercising, drill type stuff at home, we're now able to focus almost primarily on speaking and listening in class, on actual production of the language. Our predominant practice form in class is partner conversation. And we switch partners about every 5 minutes in class, about activities about every 5 minutes. We do lots of missing gap information exercises, lots of interview type activities where they have to mix and go around, interview each other. But the place where that I've really seen the biggest difference in using all of this online support is in student production of dialogues and skits, because I found that they're taking chunks of language, from the dialogues that they've read, from the exercises they've been listening to. They're lifting it and putting it into their skits. I just wanted to show a little video. This is a completely original skit some of my students did about 2 weeks ago, so about a little more than halfway through the semester. These are students who started at 0. And what I want, you're not going to understand what they're talking about, or I'll have you guess, but I want you to see is just how comfortable they are and how they're able to convey what's going on, how their communication is just so smooth for first-year students. something you don't understand. But, so the point here is they have this 6-minute skit, no notes, divided into 3 parts. Husband and wife, the guy is going for a job interview. They ask her what he should wear. And she gives him some suggestions and she sends him off. The second part of the skit is the actual interview. Very basic, you know, do you want a job? Yes, I want a job. That's good, we need someone. You know, he gets the job, and the third part is he goes home and they celebrate with pizza and a beer. Okay? But I have to say that, you know, in years past, when we've done these skits at this exact same point, that the percentage of students who could act with this degree of accuracy, fluency, comfort, and flow, you know, just flow of, you know, the right intonation, the right emphasis on words, was much lower. You know, I would say that, you know, whereas in the past, maybe 15% of our students could do this, I would say it's about 70 now. And I think that comes just from increased modeling. Okay. This. Almost done. Yes. I don't think I'll say much about linked writing assignments, only to say that a number of the listening exercises, and we do also have reading exercises, you know, on the website, though fewer of them, have linked writing exercises that encourage creativity, draw on the student's prior knowledge, focus on the student's personal world, and that they often bring this writing into class and then they have to share it, and that we do speaking activities based on that writing. Yes, I think that's enough. Questions, comments?
One of the things that I've noticed in a lot of our intensive classes, I've sat in on Hebrew and on Arabic and our own Russian classes, Italian and French now using this as well, is something you very much, I think, made reference to in that student-made video. And it's immeasurable. That's the problem. We can't measure this particular thing everyone keeps pointing to, and that is a rise in confidence that students simply who've used these kind of materials in this methodology, they do come across, as you say, it's much, they'll take risks. They'll try to say things that they may not even be sure they're able to say. And there's a strange kind of confidence they have about using the language. And I love the fact that you're attributing part of this to the methodology and the materials, but there's a huge amount, in my view, from what you showed us today, of the authenticity of the materials. The fact that these materials look like turkey, smell like turkey, sound like turkey, they kind of make the students, you said from the very beginning, want to go there, want to be there. And I just think that's true. That's the more the comment part, that the question that's attached to that, to what extent then in class does the student in a way, I won't say artificially, but virtually get to be in Turkey, in the sense of how much of the class is actually preparing the student for a study abroad experience, or maybe employment in country? Do you ever think of do you ever kind of tell the students, or do the students tell you, ultimately I need to be able to use my Turkish in Ankara?
Yes, I mean, yeah,
Terrific.
I have one student right now who's going to do her internship at the American Embassy
Fantastic.
in Ankara in January. She just started Turkish. Excellent
Wow.
student.
Wow.
2 other students who will be going to Boğaziçi University in the spring. Yeah, I do have students who have an immediate need, or who are immediately going to travel, and yeah, they tend to have more practical questions. But I've also found that if you keep hammering, it's a fine balance at the beginning level, the approach to culture. I'll talk to you over there too. That you can't focus only on cultural differences, or only on cultural common points. That there needs to be a balance between the two, particularly at the beginning level. And so I try to bring a fair amount of video, music, and other cultural realia into class as well. But I also realize that, these are young people in their 20s mostly. They have a need also to talk about themselves, to talk about the UT campus, to use the language to talk about what's in their lives. And so I would say it's about 50-50 in class, that, about 50% of the activities we're doing in class are also have that embedded culturally relevant material or detail in them. But about half of them don't. Half of them are set where we are now. For example, if they're having to practice telling someone directions, or what buildings are where you can eat, then a lot of times that activity would be, set right here so that they can use their real practical skills of, okay, you have to walk out of this building and turn left and go here to go to this other building.
So are these materials now used in conjunction with a standalone textbook that you use in class? What are the materials for intensive Turkish?
So the materials for intensive Turkish are very new. We've been using them for 4 years. I'd like to say that, I don't think we're still piloting them, because the person who originally wrote them is no longer with us. She was a doctoral student also in the College of Education's Foreign Language Education program, and now she works in ESL educational research at the University of Arkansas. Her book is still unpublished. We have the rights to use it. It's an excellent, very communicatively focused book, very minimal grammar, lots of communicative tasks in it. It's not a very student-friendly book. I have to guide the students through it, and it would also not be a very friendly book for inexperienced instructors either. You kind of have to know what to do with it. But I hope it'll be published someday soon, because it's very different from any other Turkish materials that are on the market for the novice or intermediate level. Sequencing of content and grammar is different. So it's called Life with Turkish 1 and 2.
Any other questions?
No, I'm just in for listening.
Good.
I would say the big differences between the book and the website is the embedding of more cultural content, because the book is a little bit minimalist in that aspect.
It does. I love the integration of the website materials that you've got with what you do in classes.
The other thing I should say is, we're hoping to eventually make this open source, and so the one thing that has been very difficult for us is all of our photos have to be open source, which is more limiting than you think it would be.
It's massive.
Everything that's on there right now is open source, and it's why we're still sort of always on the lookout for good pictures.
No other questions? Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.